A man like Jesse Winters and knew the sound of death. He had put enough people in the ground to recognize it. But the cry cutting through that Wyoming blizzard wasn't death. It was a baby, fighting for every single breath. He found them in a snowdrift. A woman curled around her child, her lips blue, her feet bare and bloody. She had walked through a blizzard with no shoes, carrying her daughter, running from something worse than freezing to death. And here's what stopped Jesse's heart cold. Two riders had passed her the day before. They saw her dying. They looked right at her, and they kept riding because her husband sent them. He paid those men to find his wife and baby and make sure they never made it out of that storm alive. For 17 years, Jesse Winters had been running from everything. No roots, no family, no reason to stay anywhere. But when that baby grabbed his thumb and held on like he was the only solid thing in her world, something inside him shifted forever. What happens when a broken drifter decides to fight a wealthy monster for a woman he barely knows? This story proves that one moment of kindness can rewrite your entire destiny. It reminds us that saving a stranger can sometimes save yourself, and that the family you're meant to have might be waiting for you in the most unexpected place. If you believe in second chances, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, what city are you listening from tonight? The wind howled like a cornered animal. Jesse had been riding for 3 days in this frozen hell, with Silver Creek still 5 miles away. His horse, a tough old mare named Smoke, was down to a slow, stubborn trudge. He knew they were in trouble. This Wyoming winter had hit early and meant business. November was not even over, and the world was buried under 2 feet of snow. Jesse had seen bad winters, nearly cashed in his chips and won back in '74. But this felt different, like the land itself wanted him gone. After 17 years adrift, that was a feeling he was used to. Then he heard a sound so faint he thought the loneliness was finally getting to him. But Smoke's ears shot forward. She stopped dead in her tracks. Then Jesse heard it again, a little clearer this time. A baby crying. He thought, no, that just is not possible out here. But Smoke was already turning toward the sound, and Jesse let her lead the way. His hand went to the rifle on his saddle, just in case. Bandits were known to pull all kinds of tricks, but that cry came again, weaker now, and it bypassed all his caution. That was not a trap. That was a child dying. Go on, Smoke, go, he urged, and she plunged through the drifts. The crying got louder, then stopped. That sudden silence was the worst sound of all. He saw them up ahead, a dark shape against the endless white. He was off the horse before she stopped, his boots sinking deep as he ran. A woman was curled on her side, shielding a small bundle with her body. Her face was ghost white, her lips a deep blue. Frost clung to her eyelashes. Jesse knelt down and touched the baby's cheek. The infant's eyes snapped open, and it let out a scream. It was a raw, painful sound. Lord have mercy, Jesse whispered. He felt the woman's neck for a pulse. It was there, faint but fast. Ma'am, he said, shaking her shoulder. Can you hear me? She did not respond. He saw a dark bruise spreading across her jaw. Someone had hurt her and hurt her bad. His focus snapped back to the child. The baby was dressed in fine clothes, but the shawl was soaked and frozen stiff. She looked about 2 years old, maybe younger. All right, little one, Jesse said, his voice rough. I have you now. He tried to take the baby, but the mother's arms were locked tight. Even unconscious, she would not let her child go. Ma'am, I am here to help. He had to carefully pry her frozen fingers open. As he worked, the woman let out a tiny broken whimper. That is it. You keep fighting, he urged. He finally got the baby free and pulled her into his own coat. Both of you keep fighting. The child was so light it scared him. She felt like she paid almost nothing. Her crying had softened to a weak whimper. Her tiny hand found his thumb and squeezed with a surprising strength. Something turned over inside Jesse's chest, a feeling he did not want. He pushed it down. Action, not feelings, would save them now. Smoke, he called. The mare was waiting patiently. Getting the woman on the horse was a chore. He set the bundled baby down for just a moment, hating to let her go. The mother was lighter than she looked, probably half-starved. Her dress was torn, and her feet were bare and bloody, the skin already turning black from the frost. She had walked through a blizzard carrying a child with no shoes. What in God's name was she running from? I do not know what happened to you, Jesse muttered, lifting her onto the horse, but I will get you somewhere warm. He settled her across the saddle, then picked up the baby, who had gone quiet in a way that scared him. He climbed up behind them. Just hold on, he said, kicking Smoke into a gentle walk. Silver Creek is not far now. It was a lie, but it was all he had. He held that baby with one arm and guided the horse with the other, talking the whole time to keep them all going. There is a doctor in town, Doc Hawkins. He was in the war, seen it all. He will fix you right up. The baby's breathing was shallow now. No, you do not, Jessie said, jostling her gently. You do not quit on me now, you hear? Her mama looked like a fighter, and Jessie figured this little one was too. The woman moaned against his arm. That is right. You wake up and tell me your name. But she just burned with fever and whispered one word that sounded like Rosie. Jessie looked down at the baby. Is that your name? Rosie? The child's eyes fluttered open at the sound. She looked right at him for just a second, a moment of pure clarity that stole his breath. Then her eyes closed again, and Jessie pushed Smoke to move faster. Silver Creek looked like a ghost town appearing through the snow. It was not much to look at, just one main street with about 20 weathered buildings. But it had lights, and it had people. And it had a sign swinging in the wind. S. Hawkins, M.D. Jessie rode straight for it, ignoring the stairs. He must have been a sight, covered in snow with a passed-out woman over his horse and a baby clutched to his chest. Doc Hawkins, he yelled. I need help. The door flew open. A man in his 60s, with gray hair and calm eyes, took in the scene and wasted no time. Get them inside, now. Together they carried the woman into the warmth of the office. She felt like she weighed nothing at all. Found them in a snowdrift about 5 miles out, Jessie explained, still holding the baby. She is burning up, and the child is starving. Nettie, the doctor called. A thin, sharp-eyed woman appeared from a back room. She saw everything at once. The baby needs milk, Jessie said, his voice cracking. Give her to me, Nettie said, reaching for the child. Jessie's arms tightened on their own. The baby's tiny fingers were still wrapped around his thumb, holding on as if he was the only solid thing in the whole world. Jessie Winters. Nettie's voice was soft but steady. I will take care of her, I promise. He believed her. As he gently placed the baby in her arms, the infant's tiny fingers let go of his thumb, leaving an unexpected ache in his chest. What is her name? Nettie asked. Rosie, Jessie managed to say. Her mama whispered it. Nettie nodded and carried the child to a back room. Jessie watched Doc Hawkins working on the woman. The doctor peeled away her frozen dress and examined the ugly bruise on her jaw and the marks on her wrists. Someone did this, Hawkins said, his voice low. And look at her feet. She walked through a blizzard with no shoes on. This was desperation. She was running for her life. Jessie's jaw clenched. Hawkins continued. She has severe dehydration and hypothermia. Her feet are badly frostbitten. But she is alive because of you. Will she make it? Jessie asked. The doctor met his gaze. I do not know, son, but I will do everything in my power. Then from the other room, they heard the sound of a baby finally drinking milk. The sound made Jessie's legs feel weak with relief. The baby is feeding, Nettie called out. She will be just fine. Jessie turned to the doctor. What about her mother? What can I do? Hawkins looked at him for a long moment. You have done enough, Mr. Winters. The rest is between me and the Lord. Jessie sank into a chair. I am not much for the Lord, but I can wait. The doctor raised an eyebrow. Are you planning on staying? It was a fair question. Jessie was just passing through Silver Creek on his way to Montana. He had no reason to stay. I will stay until she wakes up, Jessie said, surprising himself. Make sure they are both all right. For 17 years, he had avoided this very thing. 17 years of running from any kind of connection. Now a baby's cry in the snow was tearing down the walls he had built. He knew nothing about them, but he was staying. Everything changed when that little girl, Rosie, grabbed his thumb. He just could not ignore it. Later that night, Nettie brought the sleeping baby out, all clean and fed. She is a beautiful child, Nettie said. Someone loved her enough to run through a blizzard for her. Jessie's voice was rough. That takes more than love. It takes desperation. Nettie laid Rosie in a small basket. You were heading to Montana, Mr. Winters. I reckon Montana can wait, he said, looking at the sleeping infant. Nettie's eyes were sharp. You do not know what kind of trouble you are getting into. This is a woman running from a violent man. I know, he said. And you are staying anyway? Yes, ma'am. She paused. I run the boarding house 2 doors down. You will need a place to stay. I appreciate that, Jessie said. Do not thank me yet, Nettie warned. Trouble finds people who go looking for it. You might regret stopping in that snow. Jessie kept his eyes on the baby. I would have regretted riding past a whole lot more. For a moment, Nettie's hard face softened. My brother Sam is the best doctor around. He will take good care of them. But Jessie, she said, her voice low, a woman does not run barefoot through a blizzard unless what is behind her is worse than dying. This is just the beginning. After she left, Jessie sat alone. Every part of him screamed to get on his horse and ride away. But then Rosie made a small sound in her sleep. Her tiny hands searched for something to hold on to. Jessie reached into the basket and offered his thumb. Her tiny fingers wrapped around it and held on tight. Jesse Winters, the man who never stayed anywhere, sat there holding a baby's hand as his entire world shifted. She woke up at dawn. Jesse heard a low moan from the other room, followed by the doctor's calm voice. Easy now. You are safe here in Silver Creek. Jesse stood and walked to the doorway. The woman was sitting up, her face pale but her brown eyes wide with fear. My baby, she whispered. Where is my baby? Right here, Jesse said softly. She is safe. Her eyes locked on his, filled with confusion and fear. Rosie, she cried out. Her name is Rosie. She is sleeping in the front room, Jesse said, stepping aside so she could see the small basket. She is a fighter, just like her mama, I reckon. Tears streamed down the woman's face. You are the one who found us, she breathed. I prayed someone kind would find my Rosie. Jesse had never been the answer to anyone's prayer before. What should I call you, ma'am? He asked gently. She hesitated, a flash of fear in her eyes. It was a fear of the name itself. Abigail, she said. Abigail Mercer. Jesse Winters, ma'am. I am glad I was passing through. Abigail's eyes never left the basket. Please, can I see her? Doc Hawkins helped the weak woman to her feet. They slowly walked her to the basket where she looked down at her daughter. She reached out a trembling hand to touch the baby's cheek. My Rosie. At her mother's touch, the baby's eyes opened. She saw Abigail's face and gave a perfect, happy smile. Model. Abigail completely fell apart, her body shaking with deep, gut-wrenching sobs. Jesse had to turn his head. Watching her felt like stumbling into a private, sacred moment. She finally managed to speak between gasps. Thank you, Mr. Winters. I can never repay you. Ma'am, you don't owe me a thing, Jesse said, his voice more gravel than he intended. Just get your strength back. For that little girl. She looked up at him then, a real look, and a silent understanding passed between them. Gratitude, but also something more. You saved us, she whispered. Others just rode on by, but you stopped. A chill went through Jesse. Others? Abigail's face clouded over with a dark memory. The day before you found us, she said, her voice barely a whisper. 2 riders. They saw us plain as day. They looked right at us, and they just kept on riding. Jesse's hands tightened into hard knots. They left you to die. Yes, she said, her voice hollow. But that is not the worst of it. Her husband sent them. Thomas sent them, and when they found his own wife and child freezing in the snow, they turned and left us. A cold fury took root deep inside Jesse. Your husband, he repeated. Thomas Mercer. He'll come for us, Mr. Winters, Abigail whispered, her voice trembling. He always does. Then I will be here. The words were out of his mouth before he could stop them, and he knew he meant every last one. You do not understand. Thomas has money and men who do whatever he asks. I do not care what he has, Jesse said, stepping closer. A man who sends riders to watch his family die in the snow does not deserve what he has got, and he sure as hell does not deserve you. Jesse, she pleaded, you have done more than enough. This is not your fight. He looked at the brave, broken woman and the tiny child now reaching for her. He thought about the choice he made when he heard that cry on the wind. Some lines, once you cross them, you cannot go back. Maybe not, he said slowly. but I am making it my fight now. Fresh tears welled in her eyes, but this time they held a flicker of hope. Why, she whispered. Why would you do this for strangers? Jesse did not have a fancy answer. He only knew that when Rosie had gripped his thumb, something had shifted inside him. Because I was there, he finally said. Because I heard your daughter cry. And a man does not ride past that, not if he is any kind of man at all. Outside, the blizzard had broken. The new sun made the snow sparkle. And for the first time in 17 years, Jesse Winters had a reason to put down roots. The days that followed were a quiet blur of healing. Abigail slowly regained her strength. She had lost 2 toes to the frost, but Doc Hawkins called it a miracle she kept the rest. Jesse visited every morning and evening. He told himself it was just to check on them. But the truth was, he could not stay away. The little girl, Rosie, would light up every time he walked in, reaching for him. She knows you, Abigail said one evening as Jesse bounced Rosie on his knee. She has never taken to anyone like this, not even her father. Thomas? She used to scream every time he held her. It was like she could sense what he was, Abigail said, her voice flat. Jesse's jaw tightened. Tell me about him. I need to know what we are up against. She was quiet for a long moment, then began. I was 19 when I married him. My family had a good name, but no money. Thomas Mercer was rich, established, and respectable. But I soon learned what respectable meant to him. It meant I was his property, something to be controlled and disciplined. He broke me, Jesse, piece by piece, year by year, until I thought I was as worthless as he said. You are not worthless, Jesse said, his voice low and steady. I know that now, she said, her eyes finding his. Rosie taught me. The moment I held her, I knew I could not let her grow up thinking love looked like bruises and fear. So you ran. I tried 3 times before. It took him just 1 day to find me. He dragged me home by my hair, right in front of all the help. Jesse could feel the sickness in his stomach. The second time, I got as far as New York. I really thought I was free. But a man like Thomas has eyes everywhere. His money buys people. They brought me back, and he made it clear what happens to a wife who shames him. The third time, Rosie was just 3 months old. Thomas was out west on some railroad deal, and I saw my chance. A kind woman in Deadwood, a Mrs. Chen, gave me supplies and got me a spot on a wagon train headed for Montana. But he found us. 3 days out, he just rode into our camp, smiling and calm. He told everyone I was his poor, confused wife, suffering from hysterics after having the baby. Said he was taking me home for my own safety, and they all believed him. He was a rich man in a fine suit. I was just a hysterical woman with a baby. Nobody was about to go against him. He started taking us back to Deadwood, but he was so full of himself and his own anger. That night he drank until he passed out cold. I waited, and once I was sure, I grabbed Rosie and ran right into that blizzard. Tears fell freely now. I just knew I had to be gone before he woke up. I had to give my little girl a chance. I walked all night and the whole next day. No food, no water. I even lost my shoes in the mud while I was running. I just kept going until my body quit on me. The last thing I remember is laying down in the snow, holding Rosie so tight and praying that someone kind would find her. Jesse was quiet for a long time. His voice was gravel when he finally spoke. Those men, the riders who saw you and did nothing. He sent them. They found me dying and must have figured the cold would finish his job. They just left us there to die. He was going to let a baby freeze to death. I'm going to find us, Jesse said, his voice cold as steel. Abigail grabbed his arm. No, Jesse, that's not you. I won't let him turn you into a killer. I'm already a killer, he said, meeting her gaze. A man doesn't survive 17 years out here without blood on his hands. But I didn't pray for a killer to find my daughter. I prayed for someone kind. You are a kind man, Jesse Winters. Don't you let my husband take that away from you. He's coming for us, Jesse said softly. Thomas will come looking, I know. And when he does, Abigail lifted her chin. I'll face him. I'm done with running. You won't be alone, Jesse said. I mean it. I don't know why I can't just walk away from you two, but I can't. I won't let him drag you back to that. You don't owe us a thing. This isn't about owing. Jesse's voice was low. It's about choosing. And I'm choosing to stay. Abigail just stared at him, her eyes still wet, but a little flicker of hope was in them now. Why, she whispered. Why would you do all this for strangers? Jesse looked down at Rosie asleep on his chest. He thought about 17 years of being alone, of never letting anyone get close. Because you're not strangers anymore, he said plainly. The next morning, a man in a fancy suit arrived in a fine carriage, asking questions about a woman and a baby. Sheriff Wade Hollister found Jesse at the livery stable. He's at the hotel, the sheriff said. But you need to know, Winters, he's got papers. He's carrying a marriage certificate and a birth certificate. They say the woman you brought in is his wife, Abigail Mercer, and the baby is his daughter. That woman walked barefoot through a blizzard to get away from him, Jesse shot back. I figured as much, Hollister said. I've been a lawman long enough to tell a worried husband from a dangerous one. And that man is dangerous, so what can we do? Jesse asked. By the law? Not a whole lot. A man has a right to his wife and child. The sheriff paused. But the law isn't always the same as justice. And I'm a man who leans toward justice. You'll help us then? I'll do what I can. But men like him, rich and connected, they use the law as a weapon. He'll paint your Mrs. Mercer as crazy and unfit to be a mother. Then we need a plan. You need more than a plan, the sheriff said, stepping closer. You need to give her a legal way to stand against him. Right now, she's his wife on the run. The sheriff's idea hit Jesse hard. You're saying I should marry her. I'm saying you ought to consider your options. A new marriage would complicate his claim. It would buy you time for her to build a case. She barely knows me. She knows you saved her life. She knows her daughter feels safe with you. Sometimes that's enough to start with. Jesse's mind was spinning. Marriage. He hadn't thought about that since a girl named Sarah, who died of a fever years ago. After her, he'd sworn it off for good. I need to talk to her, he said. This has to be her choice. Make it quick, Hollister warned. Our friend at the hotel won't take long to find out where she is. Jesse ran. He found Abigail already dressed, holding Rosie in a chair in the doc's office. She looked up, her face pale. He's here, she said, her voice flat. Thomas is in this town. I know. Jesse knelt in front of her. Abigail, listen. There might be a way to fight him, but it's gonna sound real crazy. Nothing sounds crazy to me anymore. Marry me. Abigail froze. Not for love, Jesse said fast. I'm not expecting anything. But if you're my wife with papers to prove it, he can't just walk in and take you. It forces him into a courtroom. It buys us time. I know it's insane, but I'm offering you protection, a name he can't touch. She searched his face. And you'd do that? Tie yourself to a woman with a dangerous husband? I would, Jesse said quietly, because I can't stand by and watch him take you. I can't let Rosie go back to that house. And because what? She asked. Because somewhere over this past week, you stopped being strangers. His voice got rough. I don't know what this is, Abigail, but I know I can't just walk away. Not now. Rosie picked that moment to reach for Jesse. He lifted the little girl, and she snuggled right into his chest like she'd always been there. Abigail watched them, fresh tears rolling down her cheeks. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. She stood up, a little unsteady. Not because I have to. I could run again, but I am so tired of being afraid. You don't have to be afraid anymore. I know. She reached out and touched his cheek. Because you're here. The door flew open with a crash. Thomas Mercer stood there, filling the frame. He was tall and well-dressed, just like she'd said, but his face was twisted with pure rage. Clara, his voice was like ice. Did you really think you could hide from me? Jesse stepped right between them, with Rosie still safe in his arms. In his arms. You best be moving on. And just who in the Sam Hill are you? Thomas looked Jesse up and down like he was something he'd scraped off his boot. The latest fool my wife charmed into her little schemes. I'm the fella who found your wife and baby girl freezing to death in the snow. Jesse's voice was quiet and cold. The same snow you left him in. For just a heartbeat, Thomas's composure cracked. I don't know what tall tales Clara's been spinning, but the woman ain't well. Been having fits and seeing things since the baby came. The only thing that needs explaining is why a man would leave his family in a blizzard. I didn't, Thomas insisted, stepping forward. I've been looking everywhere for her, and now I find her shacked up with some backwoods cowboy telling lies. They're not lies, Abigail's voice cut through, stronger than Jesse had ever heard it. It's all true, Thomas. Every bruise, every time you made me feel smaller than a dust mote. Clara, darling, you're just confused. My name is Abigail. She moved to stand right in front of him. You don't get to name me anymore. You don't get to change the story. I know what you are. Jesse's fist met Thomas's jaw before the man could take another step. He hit the floor hard, sending Doc Hawkins' tools scattering everywhere. You lay a hand on her, Jesse said, his voice a low growl, and dangerous. I would kill you right where you stand and not think twice about it. Thomas scrambled up, dabbing blood from his split lip. His rage had turned to ice. You'll regret that, he said, his voice low. Both of you. I have lawyers. I have the law. The law also says a man can't beat his wife, Sheriff Hollister announced from the doorway, his hand resting on his pistol. And it says a man can't leave his family to freeze to death. So if you want to talk about the law, Mr. Mercer, let's talk. This is a private matter. It is assault. I saw what I saw, Hollister said flatly, nodding toward Jesse's knuckles and Thomas's lip. Now, you can leave Silver Creek nice and quiet, or you can keep making threats and see the inside of my jail. It is your choice. Thomas stared, the reality sinking in that his money and influence meant nothing here. This is not over, he finally said. I will be back with a court order. And you, Sheriff, will have to hand them over. Maybe so, Hollister allowed, but that is not today. Today you leave. Thomas deliberately straightened his fine coat. Calm. He looked at Abigail, and his smile was colder than a winter wind. I never lose, Clara, he said softly. This cowboy cannot protect you. I will get back what is mine, and I will make you pay for this. And then he was gone. The room was deathly quiet until Abigail's legs gave out. Jesse caught her just before she hit the floor, with Rosie still safe in his other arm. He is gone now, he murmured. He will come back, Abigail trembled violently, with lawyers and court orders. And we will be ready, Jesse said, helping her to a chair. He made a mistake. He showed his hand. What does it matter? He has all the money and power. He does not have you, Jesse said, holding her face so she had to look at him. He does not have Rosie, and he does not have this town. This town does not even know me. Oh, they will, Doc Hawkins spoke up from the corner. They will know the woman who walked through a blizzard to save her little girl, and they will know the kind of man who would leave you to die. Doc is right, Hollister added. Silver Creek is not Boston, Mrs. Mercer. Out here, folks make their own judgments, and I have already made mine. Abigail looked at the faces in the room. You think we can win? She whispered. I think we can fight, Jesse answered. And sometimes that is the same thing. Rosie squeezed his thumb with surprising strength, and Jesse felt a sense of purpose settle over him. Whatever was coming, they would face it as one. The wedding took place 3 days later. A traveling circuit judge named Marcus Whitfield agreed to do it after hearing the short version of the story. The ceremony was simple. Nettie stood as a witness, and Doc Hawkins gave Abigail away, a gesture that made her cry. Abigail wore a borrowed blue dress. With her bruises faded, she was beautiful. Jesse, in his cleanest shirt, could not stop looking at her. Do you, Jesse Cole Winters, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Abigail Rose Mercer, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? There was a heavy pause, a silent declaration of her freedom. I do. Then I pronounce you husband and wife. Jesse kissed her gently. When he pulled away, Abigail was smiling her first real smile. Mrs. Winters, he said softly. It has a nice ring to it. Mr. Winters, she replied, touching his face. Thank you. Jesse took Rosie from Nettie, and for a moment the three of them stood as a family, legal and real. The town's small celebration at the boarding house felt warm and genuine, a brief comfort against the storm to come. That night in their room, the truth of their situation returned. I can sleep in the chair, Jesse offered right away. Jesse, Abigail said, taking his hand, I need you to know something. When I said those vows, I meant them. This is not just for protection. I am grateful more than I can ever say. She squeezed his hand. But I cannot love you, she said quickly. Not yet. Thomas destroyed something in me. I am not asking for love, Abigail. I know, but you deserve a wife who can give you everything, not a broken woman with a dangerous past. Jesse was quiet. Then he gently tucked a piece of hair behind her ear. You know what I deserve, he asked. I deserve to make my own choices. And I chose you and Rosie. I have been drifting for 17 years without a home or a purpose. When I found you in that storm, it was like everything finally made sense. It was like I was meant to find you. Abigail's tears began to fall. We do not have to figure everything out tonight, he said. Just know this. I am not going anywhere. Whatever's coming, we face it together. She rose onto her toes and kissed him. It was a soft, real kiss, full of unspoken promises. When she pulled back, she was still crying, but she was smiling too. Together, she whispered. They slept on opposite sides of the bed that night, but in the dark their hands found each other and held on. Morning brought trouble. Luther Crane from the livery showed up at breakfast, his face grim. Riders from the east, he said, 3 of them, armed and asking questions about the woman and about you. Jesse's blood ran cold. Where is Abigail? At the doc's office. Nettie saw them coming and got her and the baby out of sight. Smart woman, Jesse grabbed his rifle. The 3 riders were waiting on Main Street. They were hard men, the kind Jesse recognized as hired guns. Jesse Winters, the leader, a man with a long scar, called out. Who wants to know? Name is Rollins. My employer wants to make you an offer. Tell your employer to go to hell. Rollins smiled, a cold, empty thing. $500 waiting for you in Cheyenne. Just walk away. Leave town tonight. Nobody gets hurt. And if I do not? The smile vanished. Then things get a lot less friendly. Jesse felt the weight of his rifle ready. He was quick, but 3 guns against 1 in the middle of the street were bad odds. You go on and tell your employer, Jesse said, slow and deliberate, that my wife and daughter are not for sale. And I'm not either. Your wife? Rollins let out a sharp laugh. That's a good one. She's been Thomas Mercer's wife for 7 years. Your little hitching ceremony don't change that. Facts can change. And the fact right now is you're the one who's outnumbered. Rollins's eyes darted past Jesse. Jesse didn't need to turn. He heard the boots on the dirt. Sheriff Hollister, Doc Hawkins, and other folks from Silver Creek were stepping out of their shops, rifles in hand. Silver Creek looks after its own, Hollister said plainly, and Mrs. Winters is one of us now. Rollins sized up the situation. Whatever he was getting paid, it wasn't enough for this fight. This isn't over, he muttered. Not by a long shot. Maybe not, Jesse agreed, but it's over for today. Now ride on out. The street was silent for a long moment. Then Rollins yanked his horse around, and the 3 of them kicked up dust heading out of town. Jesse let out a long breath. Thank you, he told the crowd. All of y'all, don't thank us yet, Hollister warned. That was just Mercer feeling us out. What's coming next will be worse. Next, the sheriff's eyes turned hard as stone. Next, he brings the law. 2 weeks went by under a heavy silence. Jesse kept his eyes on the horizon, just knowing a storm was on its way. Abigail focused on getting her strength back, pushing through the pain to walk a little farther each day. Little Rosie just grew, happy and innocent of it all. The papers came on a cold, gray morning. A territorial marshal rode in carrying an order from the Dakota Territorial Court. Jesse and Abigail were to appear before a Judge Augustus Crane in 3 weeks. Thomas Mercer was saying their marriage was a sham, claiming Abigail was still his wife, and demanding he get their daughter. This is trouble, Sheriff Hollister said, looking over the documents. Judge Crane is an old-timer. He believes a first marriage is the only one that counts. So he'll side with Thomas, Jesse stated. He'll lean that way, yeah. He might decide Abigail's first vows are the ones that stick. Abigail went white as a sheet, holding Rosie tight. So that's it? She whispered. Thomas just wins? He gets to take us back? Not if I can help it. A new voice came from the doorway. A young man, maybe early 30s, stepped in. He had sharp eyes and a fire about him. The man in the doorway looked like he meant business. Samuel Brennan, I am a lawyer from Deadwood. Sheriff Hollister sent me. Jesse looked him over. Can you help? I can sure put up a fight. Brennan stepped inside, his eyes finding Abigail. Ma'am, I have heard some of your trouble. I need to hear it all. Abigail sounded worn out. Why us? Because I am tired of seeing powerful men use the law to crush folks. I am tired of them winning. So Abigail told him the whole ugly story. Brennan just listened, writing it all down. His face grew harder with every word. When she finished, he was quiet. He finally said, "Mrs. Winters, this will be a hard road. Thomas Mercer has money and the law on his side, but he has one weakness. You are his weakness." Brennan leaned in. "If you will stand in that courtroom and tell the judge what he did, we have a chance, our best chance." Abigail's face went pale. "Testify? You want me to talk about all that? You do not know what you are asking." Her voice shook. "You want me to relive it, with Thomas right there watching? You want me to show my deepest hurts to strangers? I am asking you to fight for your daughter." Brennan's voice was soft but solid. "Without your words, our case is much weaker. Doctor's notes and witnesses might not be enough." Jessie took her hand. "You do not have to decide now." "Yes, she does." Brennan stood. "We have 3 weeks. That is barely enough time. I need an answer today." Abigail looked at her daughter Rosie, at that innocent face. She pictured Rosie growing up in that terrible house, learning that love only brought fear. "I will do it," she whispered. "I will do it." The 3 weeks before the trial flew by. Brennan drilled Abigail on how to answer questions and stay strong. Doc Hawkins gathered all his medical notes. Nettie, Luther, and others prepared to speak for her. But Abigail felt the strain. The nightmares returned, worse than ever. She would wake up screaming. Some nights she did not sleep at all, just paced the room and checked on Rosie. She worried her daughter might just disappear. "I cannot do this," she told Jessie one night, her voice breaking. "I cannot face him." He told her, "Yes, you can. You do not understand what he did to me. I have never told anyone all of it. Not even you. There are things I cannot say out loud." Jessie pulled her close. "Then do not say them. Just tell the court what you are able to. What if it is not enough?" "Then we run." The words just came out. "We will take Rosie and disappear. Start over where Thomas can never find us. You would become a fugitive? For you and Rosie? I would do anything." He looked her right in the eye. "Anything." She kissed him then, a desperate kiss full of fear and need. When they broke apart, she was crying. "I do not deserve you. Let me worry about that." The night before they left for Rapid City, she found Jessie in the parlor with his notes. Rosie was asleep. The house was still. "I need to tell you something," she said. He looked up, concerned. "What is it?" She took his hands. "If tomorrow goes badly, I need you to know these past few weeks were the happiest of my life. Abigail, let me finish. I married you for safety. I told myself that was all. But somewhere along the way, I started wanting more." Jessie's heart was pounding. "What are you saying?" "I am saying I love you." The words rushed out. "I thought Thomas had destroyed that part of me. But you brought it back. The way you treat Rosie like your own. She is my own. In every way that matters. I know." Tears streamed down her face. "And you are my husband. I wanted you to know that before we go in there. What we have is real." Jessie cupped her face. "I love you too. I have for a while now." He saw complete trust in her eyes. "We are going to win tomorrow," he said quietly. "We will fight and we will win. Then we build our life, you, me, and Rosie. Promise, promise." They held each other through the night and rose with the sun, ready to face whatever was waiting in Rapid City. The courthouse was bigger than Jessie had expected. It was a stone building designed to make a man feel small. They had arrived the day before. Standing on the steps, Jessie felt the weight of it all. "Ready?" he asked her. "No," she straightened her back. "But I am doing it." The courtroom was already filling up. Thomas Mercer sat with 2 expensive lawyers. He looked every bit the respectable gentleman. When Abigail entered, his eyes fixed on her. Jessie moved to block his view. "Do not look at him," he murmured. "Just look at me." They took their seats. Rosie was safe with Nettie back at the hotel. Judge Augustus Crane entered. He was a stern man who valued order above all else. His gaze swept the room. "Be seated. We are here on the matter of Mercer versus Winters. Mr. Peaton, you may present your case." Thomas's lawyer rose. He was a smooth talker. "Your Honor, this is a simple case. A husband wishes to recover his wife and child. Mrs. Mercer, and I use her legal name, has been suffering from hysteria since the birth of their daughter. In her confusion, she fled her husband's care and fell in with a cowboy who saw an opportunity." Jessie's fists tightened. Brennan put a calming hand on his arm. "The marriage between Jessie Winters and Clara Mercer is invalid. She is legally Mrs. Thomas Mercer and has been for 7 years. Their daughter is his legal heir. We asked the court to annul the fraudulent marriage and return them to their rightful home. The judge's face was like stone. Mr. Brennan, your response. Brennan stood. Your Honor, the other side calls this a simple dispute. It is not. This is a story of brutal abuse, attempted murder, and a mother's desperate flight to save her child. Murmurs filled the room. Thomas's face darkened. We will present evidence of Mr. Mercer's violence. We have medical records to prove it. We will also show her marriage to my client was no fraud. It was her only escape from a man who tried to kill her. Objection. Piton was on his feet. These allegations are outrageous. They will be substantiated, Brennan replied calmly. Objection overruled. Continue, Mr. Brennan. The real fight was just beginning. The first day was a showdown. Thomas's lawyer paraded out business partners and church folk who all swore he was a respectable man. They painted a picture of a good husband wronged by a crazy wife. But Brennan, their lawyer, was ready. Mr. Harrison, he asked one of Thomas's partners, did you ever visit the Mercer home? A few times, yes. Did you ever notice Mrs. Mercer with injuries? A black eye, maybe? A bruised jaw? The man shifted in his seat. I might have seen something once or twice. I just figured she was a clumsy woman. Clumsy? Brennan let that word hang in the air. How often would you say she was clumsy, Mr. Harrison? Objection. Badgering the witness. Withdrawn. The point was made. Doubt had been planted. The next day, Doc Hawkins took the stand. He described Abigail's condition when Jesse brought her in. Frostbite so bad she lost 2 toes, half-starved, and running a fever. It was a miracle she and the baby survived that blizzard with no shoes on. He then told the court about the other injuries. The deep bruises on her jaw and the marks on her wrists, clear signs of a struggle, consistent with being held down. The doctor pointed to healed fractures in 3 ribs, clear signs of old injuries. He looked straight at the judge and said, in my medical opinion, were these wounds consistent with the claim that Mrs. Winters is just clumsy? He paused. No, these injuries show a long history of domestic abuse. I have seen this pattern many times before. Thomas Mercer's lawyers fought back hard, trying to discredit the doctor. They suggested Abigail got hurt running through the wild country, but Dr. Hawkins stood his ground, and you could feel the doubt spreading through the courtroom. On the 3rd day, it was Abigail's turn. She stood up, her legs shaking. Jessie squeezed her hand one last time before she walked to the witness stand. After taking the oath, she sat with her back straight, her face pale but full of resolve. Her lawyer, Mr. Brennan, began softly. Mrs. Winters, please tell the court about your marriage to Thomas Mercer. And so she did. She spoke of a happy first month, and then the slow, awful reveal of Thomas's true character. She talked about the first slap, how it turned into a punch, and then became a regular part of her life. She told him how he would lock her in her room for nights on end. She described how every day felt like walking on eggshells. She had lost herself so completely, she barely knew the woman in the mirror. Did you believe him? Brennan asked. For a long while, yes, tears rolled down her cheeks. He tore me down until I thought he was right. I believed I deserved all the pain he gave me. What made you change your mind? Rosie, Abigail's voice grew firm. The moment I held my daughter, I knew I could not let her grow up seeing that. I could not let her believe that love was supposed to leave bruises. So you tried to get away. 3 times before this one. Each time he found me. Each time the punishment was worse. And this last time, the one that brought you here? Abigail took a deep breath. We were in the Dakota Territory. I saw an opportunity when Thomas was busy with the railroad. A kind woman in Deadwood helped me. She gave me food and supplies and got me a spot on a wagon train headed for Montana. But you never reached Montana. No. Thomas caught up to us 3 days later. He rode into our camp with a big smile, telling everyone I was his confused wife who had run off and needed to go home. The wagon master believed him. Nobody helped me. What happened next? That night, Thomas got drunk and passed out. I grabbed Rosie and just ran into the dark, into a blizzard without any shoes on. I had lost them in the mud and could not go back. I just ran all night and all the next day. I had no food, no water, only Rosie. When I finally could not walk another step, I lay down in the snow. Abigail's eyes found Jesse. I prayed that someone kind would find my daughter. I prayed that even if I did not make it, someone would save her. And Mr. Winters found you. Yes, a faint smile appeared on her face. He heard Rosie crying, and he did not just ride past like the others. Brennan paused, letting her words hang in the air. Mrs. Winters, you said others rode past. Could you explain that? The day before Jesse found us, two men on horseback saw us in the snow. I was awake enough to see them. I tried to yell, but I had no voice left. They looked right at us, and they just kept on riding. The courtroom gasped. Do you have any idea who those riders were? Thomas sent them. They were his men tracking me. When they saw me dying, they just left me there. Her voice turned to ice. They left me and my baby to freeze to death. Objection! Thomas's lawyer Peaton was on his feet. There is no proof my client was involved with those men. We have proof, Your Honor, Brennan said calmly. I have signed confessions from two men, now in custody in Deadwood. They admitted Thomas Mercer hired them to follow his wife and report back. The room exploded with noise. The judge slammed his gavel. Order in this court. Thomas had turned as white as a sheet. For the first time, his calm and respectable image was cracking. When did you get these statements? The judge demanded. Yesterday evening, Your Honor. The men were caught trying to leave the territory. When they were faced with charges of being an accessory to murder, they became very willing to talk. You will have your chance to review them during your cross-examination, Mr. Peaton. Crane looked directly at Thomas. Mr. Mercer, it would be very smart for you to stay quiet now. The cross-examination was vicious. Peaton attacked everything Abigail said. He questioned her memory and her motives, even her sanity. He suggested she made up the story about the riders and had tricked Jesse into a fake marriage. But Abigail did not back down. Mrs. Mercer, Peaton said, his voice dripping with scorn. Winters, she corrected him quietly. My name is Abigail Winters. Mrs. Mercer, he repeated, is it not true you abandoned your husband for no reason? That you took his daughter and ran into a blizzard with no plan at all? My plan was to live. My plan was to give my daughter a life without being hit. You claim my client hurt you, but you were with him for 7 years. If it was so bad, why did you not leave sooner? Abigail's eyes became hard as stone. Have you ever been trapped, Mr. Peaton? Have you ever been beaten down so low, so alone, so sure you are worthless that you cannot see a way out? I stayed because I was scared. I stayed because Thomas told me no one would ever believe me, and he was right. No one did, until I came here. No more questions. Abigail stepped down from the stand, shaking but not broken. Jesse wrapped his arms around her. You did it, he whispered. You told your truth. It was not over, but the fight had finally turned in her favor. The tide had finally turned. The lawyers gave their final arguments the next morning. Peaton spoke loudly about the sacred bond of marriage and a father's right to his child. He warned the judge about letting wives just walk away from their duties. Brennan's closing argument was quieter, but it hit harder. He said, Your Honor, this case is not just about laws. It is about what is right. It is about a woman who was beaten and terrorized, and whether she has the right to be safe. It is about a little girl who deserves to grow up without seeing violence. He looked at Thomas Mercer. That man used his money and power to hurt his wife for 7 long years. When she finally found the strength to run, he hired men to find her, men who left her and her baby to die in a blizzard. His voice grew stronger. The laws Mr. Peaton talks about are meant to protect families. But what family was Thomas Mercer protecting when he raised his hand to his wife? The marriage he claims to value was nothing but a prison. The home he wants to drag her back to is a place of torture. Brennan turned to the judge. Abigail Winters came here looking for freedom. She found a man who offered her safety, a community that stood by her, and the courage to speak her truth. That is not a confused woman, Your Honor. That is a survivor, and she deserves to stay free. Judge Crane was quiet for a long time. This court will break until tomorrow morning, when I will give my ruling. That night felt like the longest one of their lives. Jesse and Abigail sat in their hotel room while Rosie slept between them. Neither of them could say what they were thinking. The fear was too big. If we lose, Abigail said at last, I want you to take Rosie. What are you talking about? Take her and run. Do not look back. Her eyes were burning with intensity. Promise me, Jesse. If he wins, you take our daughter and you disappear. I'm not leaving you behind. You have to. I can handle Thomas. I have done it before, but Rosie? Her voice cracked. I cannot let him have her. I cannot let her grow up in that house. You have to promise me. Jesse's jaw was set like stone. Everything inside him screamed no, but he saw the pure terror in Abigail's eyes, a mother's fear that was bigger than her own life. I promise, he said softly, but it is not going to happen. We are going to win this. How can you be so sure? Because we have the one thing Thomas Mercer can never buy. What is that? The truth. He pulled her into his arms, and they held on to each other. The morning came both too slow and too fast. The courtroom was packed solid. News of the trial had spread all over, and it felt like half the town was there to see how it would end. Jesse held Abigail's hand as they waited, his hand as they sat down, feeling the worry thrumming through her. Judge Crane came in, and the whole room went quiet. I have looked at all the evidence in this difficult case, the judge began. The law says one thing, but the heart says another. He looked around the courtroom. The petitioner, Mr. Mercer, argues his first marriage is the one that's binding, and this new one is a fraud. The law tends to agree with that. Jesse felt Abigail's hand squeeze his so hard it hurt. However, Crane went on, the law also knows that some promises ain't meant to be kept, especially when one person turns a marriage into a prison of cruelty and abuse. His eyes locked on Thomas. I have seen the doctor's reports. I have read the confessions of the two men you hired to follow Mrs. Winters and make sure she died in that storm. And I have listened to Mrs. Winters herself tell this court about the years of pain you put her through. Crane's voice got harder. Thomas Mercer, you came here pretending to be a heartbroken husband, but the evidence shows a monster who broke his wife's bones and her spirit. And when she finally got away, you paid men to finish the job. Your Honor, Thomas's lawyer started. I am not done, Mr. Peaton, Crane snapped. Given all of this, I am ruling that the marriage between Thomas Mercer and his wife is null and void. Over. I am also ruling that the marriage between Jesse Winters and Abigail Winters is legal and true. The courtroom erupted. Abigail just fell against Jesse, crying her heart out. He held on tight, his own eyes burning. Order, the judge yelled over the noise. I am not finished. When it got quiet again, he continued. As for the child, Rose Winters, he said the name loud and clear. I am giving full parental rights to Jesse and Abigail Winters. Thomas Mercer's rights are gone. Thomas jumped to his feet. You can't do this. She's my daughter. Blood doesn't make a father, Judge Crane said, his voice like ice. Your actions gave up any right you had to that little girl. Furthermore, I'm sending this whole matter to the prosecutor. There will be criminal charges. His gavel hit the wood with a crack. This court is adjourned. Jesse barely heard it. He was just holding Abigail, feeling her tears of relief, and watching Thomas Mercer stand there completely broken as his whole world fell apart. They had won. Won. Abigail leaned her head on his chest and whispered, It is finished, Jesse. He kissed her hair and agreed, Yes, it is finished. But Jesse saw the look in Thomas Mercer's eyes. It was a cold, hateful stare from a man who had never known losing, a man who refused to learn. The fight in the courtroom was over, but something deep in Jesse's gut told him the war had just begun. The long ride back to Silver Creek should have been a celebration. Instead, Jesse kept one hand on his rifle, his eyes sweeping the horizon. The judge's ruling was law, but Mercer's face was a promise of vengeance. Men like that do not accept defeat. They just change the rules. You are watching that road like you apex trouble, Abigail said quietly from the wagon seat. Maybe I am, Mom. She touched his arm. Jesse, we won. The law is on our side. The law is, but Thomas sure ain't. Abigail went quiet. After 7 years of marriage, she knew better than anyone what he was capable of. Little Rosie just gurgled in her lap, not knowing the heavy silence. 3 days later, they finally saw Silver Creek. The whole town came out to meet them. News of their victory had arrived first. Welcome home, Mrs. Winters, said Luther Crane as he helped her down. Home. The word felt foreign to Abigail. She had not had a real home since she was a girl in Boston, long before Thomas. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. At the boarding house, Nettie had a hot meal ready. Doc Hawkins came by to check on Abigail's feet and said they were healing up just fine. Then Sheriff Hollister arrived with news. Thomas had left Rapid City the day after the verdict, but nobody knew where he went. He could be anywhere, Hollister warned. I got folks watching the roads, but this is big country. He'll come here, Jesse said, his voice flat. He is not the kind to just walk away. Then we will be ready. But ready for what? That question haunted Jesse. Thomas Mercer had spent a lifetime taking what he wanted. He would not let a frontier judge take his wife and child. In his twisted mind, he was already planning his next attack. Jesse just had to figure it out before it was too late. 2 weeks went by, feeling strangely normal. Abigail poured herself into building a new life. She started helping Nettie at the boarding house, earning her own money. She even talked about starting a small school for the town's children. You would be a natural at that, Jesse told her one night as she read to Rosie. You really think so? I know so. You have patience and you care. That is what kids need. Abigail gave him a real smile, the kind that lit up her eyes. Maybe in the spring, if things have settled. If Thomas let them settle. Jesse kept working at the livery, earning a reputation as a good, honest man. He started putting money aside, dreaming of buying a piece of land and building a real home for them. And the future was something he never dared to want, and now it was all he could think about. But the shadow of Thomas Mercer was always there. You are wound tighter than a banjo string, Luther told him one afternoon. Just being careful. Being careful is smart. Being scared is a whole different animal, Luther said, looking Jesse square in the eye. That wife of yours is just now starting to believe she is safe. Do not you take that away from her by jumping at every shadow. Luther was right. That night, Jesse tried. He came home with a small wooden horse he had carved for Rosie and helped Abigail with supper. He told her stories from his years on the trail, making her laugh. For a little while, he let himself forget. Then a knock came at the door. Jesse's hand was on his pistol instantly. Abigail's face turned pale. Ned's voice came through the door. Jesse, Abigail, there is someone here to see you. Jesse opened the door to find Nettie with a grim look on her face. Behind her stood a well-dressed young man. This is Mr. Porter, Nettie said. He has a message from Thomas Mercer. Jesse's grip on his gun tightened. What kind of message? The man, Porter, cleared his throat. Mr. Mercer wishes to inform you that he accepts the court's decision. He will not contest it. There was a long silence. That is all? Abigail asked, holding Rosie tight. He is just giving up? Porter pulled out an envelope. He also wished to apologize for any distress and asked me to deliver this. It is a sum of $5,000 to help you get started. Jesse did not move to take it. Why would Thomas Mercer apologize or give us money? He does not do anything unless he gets something back. Porter looked nervous. I am just the messenger, Mr. Winters. Where is he? Porter hesitated. I am not at liberty to say. That flicker in the man's eyes was all Jesse needed to see. He is still here. This is some kind of trick. Mr. Winters, I assure you. Get out, Jesse said in stepping towards him. Go tell your boss we do not want his money or his apologies. We want him gone for good. Porter scrambled away. You think it is a trap? Nettie asked. I know it is, Jesse replied. I just do not know what kind. Why can't he just leave us alone? Abigail cried. Because men like him do not lose, Jesse said, pulling her into a hug. They just change the rules of the game until they win. We have to stay alert and wait for his next move. They did not have to wait long. 3 days later, Sheriff Hollister rode in with terrible news. He bought the bank, Hollister said, his voice grim. Silver Creek Savings and Loan. Thomas Mercer now holds the mortgage on half this town, including this boarding house. Nettie's face went white. That is not possible. It is when you offer 3 times what it is worth in cash, the sheriff said. He has also bought the general store and put in an offer on the hotel. Anyone who owes money in Silver Creek now owes it to him. Jesse finally understood. He is buying the whole town. He will use it to squeeze us out. He will make life so hard for everyone that they will blame us, Abigail said, her voice empty. They will turn on us to save their own homes. Some might, Hollister said, but he has changed the fight. This is not about guns now. This is about money. Thomas had found a way around the law. He could not take Abigail by force, so he would take away her entire world until she had no choice but to go back. "What do we do?" Jesse asked. "I do not know," Hollister admitted. "I am a lawman, not a banker. I do not know how to fight this." "Maybe we do not fight," Abigail whispered. "Maybe I go to him." "What?" Jesse turned to her. "If I go back—" "No," Jesse said, grabbing her shoulders. "That is exactly what he wants. He wants you to feel like you have no other choice. But there is always another choice." "What choice, Jesse? To watch this town suffer because of me? I cannot do that. I cannot be the reason good people lose everything they have." Tears streamed down her face. "Maybe if I just—" "No," he said, holding her tight. "Listen to me. You walked through a blizzard to get away from that man. You stood up in a courtroom and faced him down. You are not going back. Not now, not ever. Do not give up," Jesse told her, his voice low. "You endured so much for Rosie and for this new life. We will find a way." The following evening, the entire town of Silver Creek gathered in the church. Jesse stood with Abigail, feeling the mix of hard stares and quiet support. Thomas Mercer took the front, looking like a picture of success with his lawyers at his side. His voice was calm and persuasive as he spoke. "I am here to invest," Thomas announced. "This town has great potential, and I want to help it grow with a proper bank and a well-stocked store." Luther Crane's sharp voice cut in. "What do you want for your trouble?" Thomas's smile never faltered as he looked toward Abigail. "I only wish to be a good member of this community. I hope you will judge me on my actions here, not on disagreements from the past." The performance was slick. Jesse had to hand it to him. Thomas was framing himself as the town's savior. "He is good at this," Abigail whispered with dread. "He can make anyone believe his story." Jesse saw some people nodding in agreement, but others were not so easily sold. Then Nettie Price stepped forward, her voice ringing out. "You call yourself a neighbor, but you bought my boarding house mortgage without so much as a how do you do. Is that neighborly?" Thomas's smile tightened. "A simple business deal, Mrs. Price." Ned's voice was sharp. "Your business deals seem to follow Abigail. The boarding house, the general store, the bank. It seems you are here to—" "Let that squeeze someone," Ned finished. "Is it?" Doc Hawkins spoke up. "Mr. Mercer, I treated your wife when she arrived. I saw the bruises and broken bones. I saw what walking barefoot through a blizzard does to a person." Thomas sputtered that it was an accident. "I have been a doctor for 30 years, Hawkins said, his voice hard. "I know the difference between an accident and a beating." The mood in the church had turned. Thomas's polite mask shattered, revealing pure anger. "This is ridiculous. You believe a crazy woman and a wandering cowboy?" "That woman is my wife," Jesse said, stepping up. "She has more courage than you could ever understand." Thomas sneered. "She is just using you, Winters." Then a new voice, clear and strong, silenced the room. "And you were a prison," Abigail said. She walked right past Jesse, stepping forward to face her former husband alone. "Model, 7 years, Thomas. That is what you gave me. 7 years locked in a marriage that felt more like a cage. You spent every single one of those years telling me I was nothing, making me tiptoe around your anger. I spent them hiding bruises and making excuses for you. A little piece of me dying each day. My name is Abigail." Her voice was steady as a rock. "You lost the right to call me Clara. You do not get to rename me or rewrite our history. You broke my ribs on 3 different occasions, Thomas. You choked me unconscious. You locked me away for days." Her voice gained power with every truth she spoke. "When I finally found the courage to leave, you sent men to make sure I died in the snow." The crowd was breathless. "You want them to see a good man, but all I see is a monster. I believed your lies for 7 years, thinking I deserved the pain. I do not believe that anymore." Thomas's face was a storm of fury, the mask of civility completely gone. "You ungrateful?" "I am done being grateful," Abigail said, stepping toward him. "And I am done being afraid. You can buy this whole town, call in every loan, and make life hard for everyone. But you can never have me. You can never have Rosie, and you will never again make me believe I am worthless." Thomas raised his hand to strike, but Abigail was faster. She caught his wrist before the blow could connect. Not again, she said, her voice low. Never again. For a long moment, they stood locked like that, Abigail refusing to back down. The town watched, stunned into silence. Then, like a poorly built wall, Thomas crumbled. His rage gave way to confusion, then to something that looked a lot like fear. His hand fell to his side. He stumbled back. You were mine, he whispered. Defeated, I was never yours to own, Thomas. I was always my own person. You just refused to see it. He glanced around at the hard faces, at a community that had clearly chosen its side. He saw the sheriff's hand resting on his pistol and the cowboy ready to defend his family. He had not just lost a fight over property. He had lost his power to make Abigail afraid. Dude, this is not over, he blustered, but his words were hollow. Oh, yes, it is, Abigail replied, a hint of pity in her tone. Go home, Thomas. Go back to Boston. You will not control me ever again. Thomas stood, looking broken. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the church, and no one lifted a finger to stop him. The room exploded with cheers and tears. Jesse only saw his wife, and she stood in the middle of it all, shaking with relief. He pushed through the crowd and wrapped her in his arms. You did it, he whispered. You faced him. I was so scared. I know, he said, but you did it anyway. That is what real courage is. I could not have done it if I did not know you were there, ready to catch me. Always, he promised, always. The days that followed were a happy kind of chaos. Thomas left town that very night, selling off his new properties for pennies on the dollar. Within a week, word came that he was on the fastest train heading back east. The town celebrated as if they had won a war. He is really gone, Abigail said a week later, looking out the window at Nettie's. I keep expecting to see him. The sheriff confirmed it, Jesse said, coming up behind her. He is in Philadelphia answering some tough questions from his business partners. Looks like his reputation did not survive the trip out west. Good, she said with feeling. He deserves it. On the floor, Rosie played with a wooden doll, babbling happily. She looked up and gave her parents a smile that could melt the winter snow. What? Now? Abigail asked, her voice soft. What do we do with all this freedom? Whatever we want, Jesse said, resting his chin on her shoulder. We can stay here, build a life. You could open that school you talked about. I could buy some land, raise some cattle. We could build something that lasts. Abigail turned in his arms. I want all of it. The school, the land, a home. I want to watch Rosie grow up feeling safe. I want to grow old, right here with you. Then that is what we will do, Jesse said, kissing her forehead. Together. I love you, Jesse Winters. I love you too, Abigail Winters, he smiled. Still sounds good, does it not? She laughed, a real happy laugh, and kissed him. Rosie toddled over and grabbed Jesse's leg, wanting to be picked up. He lifted her onto his hip, keeping one arm around Abigail. This was his family. This was his future. Come on, he said. Luther might have found a piece of land for sale. 40 acres just outside of town. 40 acres? Abigail's eyes lit up. That is a real home. They walked out together toward a future that was finally their own. The storm was over. Spring arrived in Silver Creek that year like a long-awaited friend. The snow melted and the days grew longer. Jesse closed the deal on the 40 acres in late March. It was good land with a creek for water and a small hill perfect for a house. It is perfect, Abigail said when she first saw it. It is just dirt and grass now, but it is going to be perfect. They broke ground in April, and it felt like half the town came to help. You do not have to do this, Jesse told Luther as they framed a wall. You have done more than enough. Done enough? Luther chuckled. Son, I have waited my whole life to see a man stand up for what is right like you did. Helping you build your home is the least I can do. I just did what any man would have. No, Luther said, his expression serious. You did what most men would be afraid to do. That wife of yours was drowning when you found her. You threw her a lifeline and pulled her to shore. Then you stood between her and the storm. Jesse was speechless. That is nothing, son. That is everything. The house went up throughout the spring. It had 4 rooms, which was more than they needed, but Jesse was building for the future. I have never had a real home before, Abigail told him one evening on their half-finished porch. My father's house was his. Thomas's house was a cage. But this, she said, testing the word, this is ours. Jesse pulled her closer. Get used to it. We have a lot of building to do. Rosie was running now, her little legs carrying her all over their new land. She would bring her mother wildflowers and run to her father with pure joy. "Papa!" she would yell, and the words still hit Jesse's heart every time. "Hey, little one," he would say, swinging her up onto his hip. "What did you find?" Rosie held out a dandelion, a little crushed but still precious. "That is beautiful," he would tell her. "Are you going to give it to your mama?" And she would squirm to get down and toddle right over to Abigail, her family whole and safe under the wide open sky. Jesse watched her go, their little girl held tight in her arms. A feeling swelled in his chest, something warm and unfamiliar. He reckoned this was what real happiness felt like. For 17 years, he'd believed he was not meant for roots or a family's love. He was supposed to just pass through life. But one baby's cry in a blizzard had changed his entire world. The school Abigail had poured her heart into opened that May. 14 children signed up, kids who would have gotten no schooling otherwise. On the first day, he saw her hands tremble. "You nervous?" he asked gently. "Terrified," she whispered, smoothing her dress for the 10th time. "What if I fail them?" "You won't," he said with certainty. "Abigail, you walked through a blizzard for our daughter. You stood up to Thomas Mercer in front of the whole town. Teaching a few kids to read is nothing compared to that." A real laugh escaped her then, the sound he loved. "Go on now," he smiled. "Go change some lives." She kissed him, a little longer than she had to, before heading off to her new calling. That first term was a huge success. Abigail had a true gift for teaching, for making lessons feel like an adventure. Her students adored her, and their parents could not say enough good things. By the time June rolled around, she already had a waiting list for the fall. "We might need a real schoolhouse," she told Jesse one evening over her notes. "The church is wonderful, but we are running out of room." "Then we'll build you one," Jesse said. Simple as that. Abigail looked up, her eyes wide. "What do you mean?" "Right here," he said. "On our land. We have the space and folks who know how to build." "Jesse, that is far too much." "It is not enough," he said, taking her hand. "You found something you love, something that matters. I will not let a small room hold you back." Tears welled in her eyes. "Do you know how different you are from Thomas?" she asked quietly. "Every time you encourage my dreams instead of crushing them, I think of him. He only knew how to tear things down. You just keep building things up." She gave his hand a squeeze. "I keep thinking how lucky I am that you were the one who found us in that snow." "Luck didn't have a thing to do with it," he said softly. "What do you mean by that?" Jesse was quiet for a second, finding the right words. "I reckon I was meant to find you. Not fate or anything like that, just maybe I was wandering for 17 years because I was looking for something. I just didn't know it was you and Rosie until I heard her crying on that wind." Abigail's tears finally fell. "Jesse, you saved me too. You and Rosie gave me a reason to stop running, a reason to build something that lasts." They held each other for a long while, no words necessary. Summer brought news from back east. Sheriff Hollister rode out to their place one afternoon, his face unreadable. That old, familiar fear twisted in Jesse's gut, but Hollister's first words smoothed it all out. "Thomas Mercer is dead." Jesse just blinked. "What?" "Got the news from Philadelphia. Seems he got himself into some business trouble after he left Wyoming. Bad deals, people wanting their money back. His reputation was shot too, after folks heard what went on out here." Hollister paused. "He shot himself 2 weeks ago." Jesse did not know what to feel. Relief? Maybe some pity? He found Abigail in the new schoolhouse, measuring for shelves. Rosie was nearby, building little towers out of scrap wood and knocking them down with a grin. Abigail saw his face and went pale. "What happened? Is someone hurt?" "No one's hurt," Jesse said, walking over and taking her hands. "It's Thomas. He's dead." Abigail went completely still. "How?" "He took his own life 2 weeks ago. His business failed, and his name was ruined." For a long moment, Abigail did not react. Then she slowly sat down on a half-finished bench, as if her legs could not hold her anymore. "He's really gone," she whispered. "I should feel something. Shouldn't I? After all, he was my husband for 7 years." "What do you feel?" Jesse asked, sitting beside her. "Empty," she said, thinking it over. "Like there's been a heavy stone on my chest for so long I forgot it was there. And now it's gone. and I don't know what to do with all this lightness. He made his choices, Jessie said gently. He chose to be a monster. She looked at him, and her eyes were filled with a kind of wonder. And now he's gone, and I feel free. For the first time, I am completely free. No more looking over my shoulder, no more fear. It's over, Abigail, Jessie agreed. It's really over. At that moment, Rosie knocked over her biggest tower yet with a happy shout. Papa, look! A real laugh escaped Jessie, letting go of a tension he did not know he was holding. I see you, little one. He looked at Abigail. You okay? I will be, she said, taking a deep breath. I really think I will be. Fall came, and the schoolhouse was finished. A proper building with real desks and windows that let in all the afternoon light. 22 students signed up, and Abigail had to turn 3 more away. We might need to expand next year, she told Jessie, half overwhelmed and half thrilled. Then we'll expand, he said, wrapping his arms around her. That's what partners do. She leaned back against his chest. The homestead was thriving. It was finally a home. Jessie's small cattle herd was growing, and the garden Abigail planted was yielding more than they could use. Their little patch of Wyoming was finally starting to feel like a real home. The biggest change, however, arrived that October. For weeks, Abigail had felt unwell, tired, and sick to her stomach. Jessie worried that it was some lingering shadow from her terrible journey. But Doc Hawkins set those fears aside with a wide grin. Congratulations, Mrs. Winters. You are expecting a child. Abigail just stared at him. Pregnant. You are about 2 months along, he said. The baby should be here in late spring. The room seemed to spin for Jessie. A baby. He sank into a chair, his breath catching in his throat. Our baby! Abigail started crying then, but they were happy tears. I am so happy, she said through her sobs. Doc Hawkins just patted her arm gently. Your husband looks like he could use some water. Jessie was indeed struggling for air. A baby, his own child. A new life born from love, not from duty. Is this all right? Abigail's voice cut through his daze. He looked at the woman who had survived so much, who was now carrying their future. All right, he said, feeling his own eyes well up. Abigail, this is everything. He pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly. We are having a baby, he whispered. A brother or sister for Rosie. We are building a bigger family. He pulled back, his hands framing her face. I love you more than words can say. And I will love this baby with everything I have, just like I love Rosie. I know you will, Abigail said, kissing him. That is why I am not afraid, not even a little bit. Their second winter in Silver Creek felt completely different. This time, Jessie saw the falling snow as a thing of wonder, not dread. The cold nights meant gathering by the fire as a family, not fighting to survive. Little Rosie was now speaking in full sentences, her stubborn personality shining through. She is just like you, Abigail told him with a laugh. Maybe she is like both of us, Jessie replied. That Christmas was the first true celebration their family had ever had. They invited Nettie, Doc Hawkins, and Luther to the homestead for a proper holiday dinner. The house was brimming with folks who had become family, like Sheriff Hollister and a dozen others. Laughter filled the warm, crowded space. Jessie watched from the doorway, his heart full. Abigail came to his side, her pregnancy just starting to show. A penny for your thoughts, she said. Just thinking, he answered. Last Christmas, I was just another cowboy in a bunkhouse. No one would have missed me. Now I have all this. He looked at the room full of friends, a home, a family, everything. You ever miss the drifting? She asked. Not for a single second, he said, pulling her close. I found what I did not even know I was looking for. When spring arrived, so did their baby. After a long night, Jessie paced the porch with little Rosie clinging to his leg. He was not sure he could take much more. Then a strong, healthy cry cut through the morning air. Nettie opened the door, smiling wide. Mr. Winters, come meet your son. Jessie went inside, his whole body shaking. Abigail was exhausted but glowing, holding a small bundle. Come here, she whispered. Meet Cole. Cole, Jessie said, his voice thick. He sat beside her, looking at his perfect son. He is beautiful. Rosie leaned in. Brother, that is right, sweet girl, your baby brother. Tears rolled down Jessie's cheeks. Just 2 years back, he was a man with no future. Now with this woman, this daughter, and this new son, he had everything. The years passed on by. Cole grew into a stubborn boy with his father's eyes. Rosie became a young woman with her mother's fire and her father's quiet ways. The Winters homestead grew into one of the most respected ranches around. And Abigail's school, well, it became famous, drawing students from all over. Jesse never wandered again. One evening, 15 years later, Abigail asked him on the porch, "Remember when you proposed? I said a lot of foolish things. You said it was about protection, not love." Jesse cringed. "I was an idiot." "No, you were honest," she said, taking his hand. "You offered what you had, and that was enough. Just look where we are now." Abigail leaned on him. "I love you, Jesse Winters. I think I loved you before I even knew what love was." Jesse thought about his 17 years of drifting and the baby's cry that stopped him in his tracks. He thought about the choice he made to stay. "I cannot picture a life without you," he said. "If I had kept riding that day, who would I be? You all did not just change my life. You gave me one. You gave us one too," Abigail said, her voice full of emotion. "You were our second chance, and it all started because your little girl cried louder than the wind." They sat there quietly, a family built from a blizzard and strengthened by love. Their past finally laid to rest. "I have been thinking," Abigail said. "When we are gone, what will folks say about us?" Jesse thought for a moment. "They will say I was a stubborn cowboy who got lucky. They will say you were a Boston lady who found a home out here, that we built a good life. But that is not the real story, is it?" she asked. "No," Jesse said, pulling her close. "Our story is much simpler." He looked out at the land they owned. A woman was in trouble. A man was there to help. And against all the odds, that simple choice turned into a lifetime of love. Abigail smiled. "That is a good story. It is the best one I know," he replied. And that was the truth of it all. It started with a choice to stop in a storm for a stranger. That single moment proved that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can give you a second chance at forever. The end.